Sir,
Who are you? What are you doing here?
I've traveled long and far to hear your story.
My story? Well, please, sit. My story, you say? Let me see here. You must be thinking of... Collin slung his sword over his shoulder, pulled his deep violet cloak around him, raised his hood, and headed out into the storm. The sword's scabbard was adorned with etchings in the azure-stained leather, runes and sigils, symbols of elder magic imbued by his brother to protect him on his adventures. Collin took a deep breath and looked out over the land. There wasn't any more time to rest. His quest was nearly complete, sorrowful as it was. The balding innkeeper took a sealed letter from Collin as he departed, grease stains smeared on his bulging apron, and bid the traveler farewell. He promised to mail the note swiftly and turned back into the warmth of his establishment. The muddy path before the lone soldier stretched out into the rolling hills of the countryside. He had been traveling for some time now since the end of the battle, and though he survived the conflict against the legions of moblins at the border, Collin's entire battalion was slaughtered. Images of the massacre flashed in and out of the wayward soldier's mind, but on he walked, and the rain was bucketing down. His short beard dripped from under his hood, and all through the afternoon he pressed on through the rainstorm. He was soaked through, tired, and still a long way from home. The battle was lost, and he hoped to get back to his homeland to inform his king of the failure and warn of the coming onslaught before it was too late. As he trudged onward, Collin remembered his men, brothers in arms, and the songs they sang together around the fire on the eve of battle. For home, for high rule, they sang, they shouted, they told tales of old heroes and princesses of legend. But it wasn't enough. The following morning, the moblins overran the Hylian forces that Collin joined in the hopes of finding glory. To the young warrior's horror, he found only blood and death. The war against the King of Thieves had been raging along the borders, but soon the war would be at Castletown's gates. Still, Collin pressed on through the storm. As he reached the crest of a hill, the beaten soldier smirked, for there on the horizon he saw the magnificent sight of Hyrule Castle in the distance. He looked over his shoulder from whence he came. Smoke rose from afar. The moblins drew closer every day. Collin grimaced and plodded on. If he stopped now, he would never get home in time to warn his kingdom of the danger. He would never get home in time to warn his brother. Michael awakened early that morning, sun shining through the storm clouds overhead. He rubbed his eyes and rolled out of bed and put the kettle on to boil. Some tea will do me good, thought the lone monk. Michael, a reclusive thaumaturge who lived in the forests that bordered the great fields of Hyrule, had settled into a comfortable life as of late. Months ago, his beloved brother had gone off to seek his fortune and do his duty for the kingdom. Michael scoffed at the glory his brother sought, but admired his courage all the same. Since going into his self-imposed exile, Michael studied day and night. The lone wizard spent his days wandering the woods, seeking out ruins and old tomes in order to uncover the hidden power of the land. He was determined to prove the truth of Hyrule's ancient legends that told of a silent hero and the many adventures centered around the salvation of the kingdom's princesses. However, every night before turning in, Michael would write a letter to his brother, hoping to convince him to return home and leave what he deemed a foolish war. But whenever Michael got a response, it seemed his brother was only more determined to continue the good fight. Today, Michael headed out into the deep woods as usual. He hoisted his rucksack up and tightened it, adjusted his verdant cloak, and picked up his favorite oaken walking stick. After hiking the narrow path from his little cabin for a few hours, soon he found himself at a standing stone in a secluded part of the forest. Michael discovered this forgotten place a few weeks ago. So far, he was able to decipher much of the story hewn into the rock. Courage, wisdom, power. The lone thaumaturge suspected the finding of this stone was the beginning of something that would shape his fate from this point forward. If only his oldest friend and companion would return and help him pursue the mystery of this strange discovery. He hadn't received a letter from his brother, stationed at Hyrule's border to fend off invading monsters, in over a month. The delay worried Michael, though he sensed his brother held a power that would lead him to safety. All the same, Michael knelt before the standing stone, closed his eyes, and recited a prayer. It was an old poem, a prayer that aimed to summon the triune forces that watched over his world, taught to him by his grandfather years ago. 3 dragons watching over us, 3 goddesses above, along with blessed Hyrule, a pantheon of love. Never falter, never fade, for when the Demon King returns, let us find the sacred blade.